Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where today I'm excited to tell you we not only have two interesting movie news stories, but one very exciting opportunity for some of you when it comes to Warner Brothers. So if you want to work in the film industry, particularly as a director, you're going to want to check out the third story today. It's a doozy. It could also be potentially annoying and dream crushing, but like with any, really exciting big opportunity that could take you straight to the top, you just have to have nerves of steel. All right, because it's going to be, I think, to some degree also a little bit stressful because so much is at stake. But let's, after that little bit of a tease, let's get to the first two stories. One of them is about Daisy Ridley from Star Wars, and a number of you actually tweeted me this story yesterday, where Deadline reported that she was one of the actresses being considered, on the short list, so to speak, for the Tomb Raider reboot from Warner Brothers and MGM. So to play Lara Croft, after, of course, Angelina Jolie so famously played that role. Now, of course, if you've been following the Tomb Raider reboot, because it's not only being rebooted as a film property, but it's been rebooted as just a property in general. In the game, the video games and the comics, they've made Lara Croft younger. They've made her more of an every woman. She's gone from this she's basically gone from the kind of character that Angelina Jolie would play to the kind of character that Daisy Ridley would play. Now, I have to say, it's fantastic casting, right? I think that Daisy Ridley, who is also British, would be an amazing Lara Croft. I think it's really good casting, and I can certainly see why Warner Brothers and MGM would want her. However, if I were Disney, I would be making sure that this did not happen, because she's basically playing a Star Wars version of Lara Croft already. And I certainly wouldn't need her to dilute being Rey with being a character that's so similar, right? So I think that it's unfortunate, but you can't play everybody. Some actors try, but I think, you want to be associated with, I think it's one of the reasons that I don't see Hugh Jackman being both Wolverine and James Bond as he would like to be. I think when it comes to that big defining blockbuster character, you really only can have one. And then you go and you make other movies around that, that show off different sides of your persona, etc. Now, sometimes, Tom Cruise, has done, of course, the Ethan Hunt films, and then he's going to go and do the Mummy movie. So you can do different blockbusters, but I'm talking about playing an iconic character, like Daisy Ridley is Rey. That's about it. Now, that's not saying she can't be in other action movies, but I think it would be difficult for her to be in another franchise like that, especially playing, again, such a similar character with the way Lara Croft has been reimagined. So it's just one of those situations where, yes, it would be perfect, but I think it would do such damage to the at the very least, if I were Daisy Ridley's management team, I would maybe use this as a bargaining chip to get her even more money in the Star Wars movies. I'd be like, well, Warner Brothers and MGM have made us a very nice offer, and, we'd hate to take it, but, Daisy needs the work, she needs the money, and they'll be like, darn it, here's an extra couple $1,000,000. I just feel, I think that's the best that can come out of this. I actually even think it would hurt both franchises, even Lara Croft, if she were to play both characters. But again, it's just a little bit of a shame, because she would be great. What about Rebecca Ferguson as Lara Croft? She'd be fantastic. I think she might be a little bit too old for the roles, the way it's been reimagined, but she'd be a fantastic Lara Croft, and I think a lot of people would see that movie. So, Warner Brothers and MGM, you're welcome. Go get Rebecca Ferguson. She, of course, is in she's Ilsa Faust in the Mission Impossible movies now. She'll be returning for Mission Impossible 6, but that's not her franchise. I think she could go and get another franchise, and should. So I love that casting. I've solved the problem. All right, so let's move on to the second story of the day, and this has to do with Sylvester Stallone, and the rumor is that he is in Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, that rumor has further developed to have new information from someone who claims they've seen Stallone on set. And apparently he's playing a character in the Nova Corps, the organization that Glenn Close headed up in the first movie, Guardians of the Galaxy, but that his mask, like all the Nova Corps members, though, they're going to play up the similarity to Judge Dredd. Now, I think that's pretty awesome because it's such a James Gunn thing to do, right? Like, James Gunn, I think, has a very strong tone, or a very strong creative voice, and I think that an homage, he has Snake Plissken in his movie. He's going to have Stallone's Judge Dredd. You can certainly see kind of like a pattern and everything fitting together. However, I would say, though, that to many people, including myself, Karl Urban is the better Judge Dredd. Dredd was just a fantastic movie. I feel horrible it didn't do better in theaters. There's a certain group of fans that are still pulling for a sequel. It looks less and less likely these days. Every year that passes that they don't make one, it seems less likely that they will. But Karl Urban was a fantastic Dredd, and if you're looking for a movie to watch and you need something, go stream Dredd. It's absolutely fantastic, very well done. It's a ripoff of The Raid, sure, but it's excellent, and Karl Urban is so good in the role. He worked very hard to be able to portray a character without having his face as one of his creative tools. So I think it would be great if Karl Urban showed up in Nova Corps, but I think Stallone plays very much into what James Gunn is trying to do with that franchise, down to the music, which of course is also from period pieces. So interesting, and I'm curious how much James Gunn can push this, because there's a lot of stuff coming out with like the 80s references. Some of his stuff when Guardians was 70s, obviously. But Ready Player One is going to be heavily ingrained in the 80s. There's the Goldbergs on TV, which is very 80s. Richard Linklater has an 80s movie coming out. I think the 80s might be very close to the point of oversaturation. So hopefully Guardians of the Galaxy can be immune to that. All right, so those are the two stories of the day, and now on to this opportunity, which was announced yesterday. And this is an opportunity for which anyone can apply. So what's happening? Well, Warner Brothers, in response to the Oscars So White controversy, and I'm sure that everybody can apply to this, and I would urge everyone who's interested to apply. Don't be like, well, I'm not a black director, or I'm not someone who would be considered a diversity hire, I should sit this one out. Make Warner Brothers say no to you. So basically, Warner Brothers is starting something called the Emerging Film Directors Workshop. And I've put the link in the video description for the website. The application process is not open yet. However, they say you can email them and follow them on Facebook, and they have links there to stay on top of when the application process does open up. So they're not going to make, I think, huge announcements about this outside of this one or until they have their final films from this program, but pay attention to this. So you want to really be on top of this and make sure you do a good job. Now, I'm going to explain the program to you in just a minute, but I'm sure many of you are heading over to that website right now. I want to give you some advice. I know you're very enthusiastic about this, as you should be, because it's a tremendous opportunity. But make sure when you write to Warner Brothers to inquire about applying, or when you're actually applying, write from the mindset of a professional. Do not go in there as a fan. Don't pitch them ideas until they ask for ideas. Don't say you want to work on the DC movies, because you're not going to, at least not off the bat. You want to seem very much like an artist, you want to seem like a professional, and you want to seem like someone who's going to play ball. And someone, because make no mistake, they want to trot these people, whoever are lucky enough to partake in this, out in front of the press to make Warner Brothers look good. Not only in terms of diversity and giving people opportunities in Hollywood that normally wouldn't get them, but as people who could potentially be hired to actually work in the industry. So you need to make sure, make no mistake, as soon as you write to Warner Brothers and get on their radar, they will be judging you partially in that fashion. So my advice to you is to seem like someone that they would want to have the press interview and to say great things about Warner Brothers. That you are someone who is going to work with them. That you don't feel you're going to change Warner Brothers and help them out, but you just want Warner Brothers to give you a wonderful opportunity because you love them so much and want to be part of this such a fantastic studio. And again, don't just focus on their big ticket pictures. I think that would be a mistake because they're going to think of you again as someone who's not someone who can be taken seriously. So that's advice to keep in mind. Now, of course, you're going to have to follow your gut, but just always take every bit of advice with a grain of salt, but keep that in mind. So what they're going to do is they're going to pick 5 people, and those 5 people will actually get to work on the Warner Brothers lot and have a salary while they work there for 9 months making a short film. Each short film will have a $100,000 budget, and you will work with a screenwriter to develop a script. Once that's in place, you will use all of the resources that they have at Warner Brothers to make your movie, right? So you will use their pre-production facilities. You will use their equipment to shoot. You will use their post-production facilities. I took the Warner Brothers studio tour one time when I was in Los Angeles, and just being in their prop house alone was like an amazing experience just, as a movie fan. So imagine if you could actually use those props for your film. So this is really wonderful that Warner Brothers is doing this. I hope that they are considering everybody for this program. They have 5 slots. It would be great if they chose 5 different types of people from every different demographic and, different genders, represent also different, the sexuality, the LGBT community. I hope that it's true diversity and, isn't just like a knee-jerk reaction to Oscars so white. I mean, again, the black talent community deserves representation, but so does everyone. So get in there. Remember that they're looking for people that they could use in terms of promoting their agenda, and so play up that diversity card if you have it, but also that you're a professional, that you're going to be someone that will be an asset to Warner Brothers, right? So that's very exciting, and this is actually the best opportunity I've seen yet to come out of all this. Very, very good. Even I'm sure it'll help if you have like some film background experience and you've made some movies, but you never know. I would just take a roll of the dice and see how you can do. All right, so that's the third story of the day, that opportunity. Let's get to the viewer question, which is from frequent BTT viewer and commenter Rishi Chudari. And Rishi says, question, why are musicals not mainstream like superhero movies, and why? It's scary because I'm a band kid and I love music so much. Love to hear anyone's thoughts on this. Lots of emojis, including lots of musical ones. So great question, Rishi. And I would be curious to hear everyone's thoughts on this, just as Rishi would, so be sure to comment down below. Now, my theory on this is that right now we're in a vein of filmmaking, and the audience likes it, where everything's very realistic, right? Like that's one of the reasons found footage did so well. I mean, people like things that seem, very true to life. Even our superhero movies, we like, them to seem a little bit more realistic. Nolan introduced that. Well, maybe we'll move away from that. Who knows? But I think that element's going to remain at least a little bit for some time. Now, the Disney fantasy movies are doing very well, but at the same time, I think they take a little bit more of a realistic approach to them, right? It's like taking animation and making it a little more realistic. So I feel that musicals don't do so well because that suspension of disbelief that someone will break into song is just very difficult for a lot of moviegoers to accept these days. So that's one reason. The second reason is that not a lot of great new musicals are being produced right now, with the exception of Hamilton, for instance, right? The Book of Mormon was very successful, but The Producers was not a successful movie, and they have not made the Book of Mormon into a movie. And also, I don't know if Hamilton would work as a movie, I'm not sure. Maybe they'll do it, but of course, Lin-Manuel Miranda just got a role in Mary Poppins, so we'll see how a Mary Poppins, sequel or continuation does. But potentially with Emily Blunt and Lin-Manuel Miranda. That doesn't seem like too much of a winner to me, but I could change my mind once I see a trailer for it, right? But I think what I'm trying to get at here is that I think there's not a lot of great new musicals being produced in terms of, this traditional, musics themselves. For instance, Rodgers and Hammerstein were not only extremely talented, but very commercial. Songwriters. The Sherman Brothers, very commercial. Kander and Ebb. These are the kind, those songwriting teams, I think, were very prolific, and I think were very good at making musical scores that were not only respected by the musical theater community, but really had a lot of crossover appeal. And I think that has not happened as of late. There aren't a lot of great new musicals because Broadway has become, just like very remake and sequel heavy in the movie business, the same thing's kind of happening on Broadway. There's not a ton of original content. Now, I'm sure some theater people will disagree with me, but at the end of the day, I think you can't ignore the commercialization of Broadway. So I think that's what's happening. I mean, if they were making new Fair Ladies, new Sound of Music, when adjusting for inflation, is still considered one of the most successful movies of all time. It was a huge success. But we don't have any new musicals being written like that. So perhaps if someone comes along, I think Frozen is an example of a successful musical because Let It Go is just such a good song. But the Lopez's, Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez, are not consistent in terms of tone. Because, for instance, they worked on Avenue Q and they worked on the Book of Mormon. So I think that it would be a good idea, perhaps, and they're doing this upcoming movie like Adam, I believe, the musical, right? There's been rumblings about that. Channing Tatum and Joseph Gordon-Levitt want to make a musical. That could do very well, especially after Channing Tatum did such a good job in the Coen Brothers movie. Although everyone said he did a good job, but in my review, I felt that he didn't have a lot of joy in his performance. It seemed very technical, like hitting his marks, and it didn't leap off the screen in terms of charisma. But he did hit his marks. But I think that's potential to work out. But I think that something that could happen would be perhaps I would encourage the Lopez's if I worked at Disney or if I was another studio, and I would say, why don't you make, I'm glad you're so good at making the edgy, funny musicals, but why don't you consider doing something that's pure fantasy and is a little more traditional, like Let It Go, and do a musical like that, because look at the success that you had there. Even you do want to build a snowman. I mean, I think the Frozen is probably the best recent example of a new musical succeeding wildly, and I would think that the Lopez's would want to repeat that, but apparently they don't, because we have not seen them, or maybe they are secretly. But that's another good point. I think that Howard Ashman and Alan Menken were another great songwriting duo. Little Shop of Horrors, fantastic, and then of course Disney swooped them up before they went and did other live action work. But their musicals are also, huge meta successes that have withstood the test of time. We're talking Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. The last thing that Howard Ashman worked on before he died. So Disney's kind of the only one doing successful mainstream musicals right now, which are very successful, but I think that could go to live action if they were to follow the same principles. So that's my answer to your question, Rishi. Thank you so much for asking it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and that viewer question. Good luck to anyone, or break a leg to anyone applying to that WB Emerging Film Directors Workshop. And be sure to let me know down below what you'd like to see covered on Monday and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.